I would have thought that it would start automatically, but I guess since I didn't start, I didn't start off as the controller of this. So it's all, who took over? Oh, it's Amber. Yeah, it's all Amber's fault. Okay, so positive, this is always positive, that's always negative. We talked about aliasing. Aliasing. Sometimes it's good. Aliasing will show us a velocity that is too high for the scale. And of course, as you guys learned the other day, aliasing could be like off the scale here, and it wraps around and comes back down. And so then we have red to yellow to a black, no, I'm sorry, no black line. Red to yellow to teal to darker blue. That's aliasing. Now, sometimes that's good. It's showing you a very high velocity that you need to see. Other times you might want to fix your machine so there's not so much aliasing. In other words, if you have aliasing and it's simply technical, that means your number here, and of course up here, is too small. And so then you take your PRF and you move that number up to 30, 40, 50, whatever it takes to get rid of the aliasing. You don't want to raise it too high, and then, because if you have it too high, you could actually hide good aliasing. So that's something we'll just learn over time. What else do I want to say about this? Oh, and then color scale is no good at all for velocity. And we'll just leave it at that for now. You can't get an accurate velocity for color scale. It doesn't even try. It just punts on that. It says, "I forget it. I don't know what I'm doing. Not even going to try." Okay, so now you hit your update, or hopefully, if you're listening to me, you will hit your set button rather than the pulse wave button again. Now we have our spectral scale on this side. On the spectral scale, this is positive or negative. And down here is positive or negative. So that's really important. Color scale, positive's always on top, negative's always on bottom. Down here, it could be either way. So when we hit invert down here, we're changing a waveform that looks like this. And we're going to instead make it look like that. Now, in general, if the waveform does look like that, it's an artery, and generally, arteries up here, veins down here. Generally. Doesn't have to be that way. It usually is, especially the arteries being on top, but the veins are usually down here. Now, of course, that doesn't include an artery that changes direction. Whoops, that's not good. Let's think about one. In this case, we have multiphasic flow. We actually, this is actually we can call this triphasic flow. The Wind-Kessel effect is working on this vessel, but in this case, we had forward, then backward, and then forward again. And then it repeats itself. So that's a typical flow for an artery. It doesn't have to cross the baseline like that, but it can. And whenever it does cross baseline, whenever any vessel crosses the baseline, it is going backwards. Now, aliasing on this scale, let me draw in a kind of a box just to show you where the boundaries are. Aliasing on this is, let's say you go peak system, whoops. That would help. Let's make it a nice cool green color. We're coming along end diastole and comes shooting up underneath and then back down. And once again, shoots up, comes up from underneath, back down. So here we have aliasing. Aliasing, there are some exams where I simply don't care that it aliases. It's usually vein exams, and we're manipulating the veins. But with an artery, this aliasing is pretty much never good. It's because it doesn't do us any good.
So I have a question about that. Isn't this one of those situations where all you have to do is shift the baseline?
On this picture, a baseline shift absolutely would work. And so that's kind of a, it's a bit of a band, well, no, I don't want to say Band-Aid is a bad thing. In this case, the Band-Aid is all you needed. Never, by the way, on an artery, never have the baseline all the way down here. I can't stand that because that means any reversal of flow is going to be showing up here, which is just, ugh, drives me crazy. But you could bring the baseline to maybe here. And if you bring your baseline to there, then I think this peak will just make it inside. So yeah, that's certainly one thing you could do. The other thing we can do is once again go to our PRF. Okay. I'm getting a little worried about my program here. I actually, it shut down on me like 5 times this morning when and I could see it's moving slow, but I'll go ahead and hit. Okay. You could take your PRF, and in this case, you take your PRF and go counterclockwise with it because you're gonna go clockwise with it. Increase your, yeah. I increased my PRF. Increase my PRF to, yeah. I'm sorry, clockwise, you're going to increase your PRF. And when you do that, 2 things simultaneously will happen. This guy will simply get smaller so that it now fits, and we could pretty much erase away. So that's one thing that happened, but you can't do that without changing the scale. And so when we do this, our scale, instead of going to 120 centimeters per second, let's just say it now goes to, I don't know, 150. So you will notice that when you change your PRF, the scale changes. And if you are simultaneously scanning, you will also notice that this waveform will either get larger or smaller depending on which direction you're changing your PRF. If your waveform is too small, then I hope I'm saying this right, because I'm getting a brain freeze on this. But in any case, if your waveform is too small, you really can't get a lot of information out of that. It's too small. You can take your PRF down the other way and change your scale. Okay, let's see, I think. Oh, and if you think about it, and this might be a little advanced, but let's just so you know. Oh, God. Other things that you could do, change your angle. If you change your angle, you're going to change this. If you change your operating frequency, you're going to change this. If you change, well, you can't really change your speed of sound or your Doppler shift, or your Doppler shift will change from different angles, but those are other ways of actually manipulating your waveform here. Okay. Anything else? I don't want to get too much farther. Let me just rehash something I know we've already talked about, but it's worth it. At least I think it's worth it. I hope it's worth it. So once again, transducer is there. Our blood vessel is coming up, kind of comes up, and then it goes back down, a little exaggerated, but this is a lot of CCAs do this. If you Doppler straight down on this piece right here, my box like that, bad. If I'm straight up and down, I'm over here, good. If I'm targeting my color in that direction, that is great. Now, sensitivity aside, Doppler angles. Doppler angle. Ooh, zingle. 90 degrees to the transducer, bad. Here, you're still scanning straight up and down with your color, but the blood vessel is doing the work for you. That's good. And now you're steering and the blood vessel. Now you're working with the blood vessel here. Let's go to the other side. If I'm steering like this over here, my direction of Doppler, my direction of the sound waves coming in, I've basically, what have I done? I've created there's the blood flow, there's my Doppler coming in. You could see where I've actually gone 90 degrees again. It looks like I'm steering, well, I am steering, but I'm steering exactly wrong. So this is, this is bad over here. This is steering alone. Of course, toe heeling is even better. Toe heel is, I'm going to say is best. So in other words, instead of having my angle like this, or my transducer perfectly up and down like that, I'm going to, can I change you? I don't know how to rotate the stupid thing. I'll just draw it again. That would be on my toe. And now sound's coming out in this direction. I don't even have to steer it at all, or I have to steer it less, and those are best.
Unless you're writing goofy.
Unless what?
Said unless you're writing goofy.
Yeah, I don't. Let's see. I'm left foot forward, so I don't think I'm goofy. I think that's what most people. Forward, away, no Doppler shift. Okay. Okay, that's all I want to talk about. But the problem is it's only 11 o'clock. Okay, let me just go over, I know exactly what I want to do. So I've gone over anatomy of the carotid with you guys, at least quickly. I know it wasn't, I didn't go over anatomy in detail, but really you pretty much have it, but we'll go over that again at some point. But let's just talk about the carotid exam. The exam itself. So I haven't gone through chapter 7 lately, so let's hope I'm not saying anything too wrong. Let's do a quick. Okay.
Wait, chapter 7, what book?
Kupinski.
Cerebrovascular?
That's going to be next week. We're definitely going to be hitting the carotid hard. In fact, yeah, no, we'll wait. We'll hit the carotid next week. A lot of this we've already gone through, so we could actually go through this chapter pretty quickly. But I'll have you guys read that for next week. In any case, bulb. Ooh, boy, okay, that's not good, but all right. That's all right. I just need something crude to reference if needed. I could just use John for crude reference too. But, the carotid exam, basically, we are looking for plaque, right? Most of the time, plaque is going to be found kind of around here, around the bulb. Distal CCA. And then in the ICA. Now that's mostly. We could have plaque all the way down. We could have it in the arch. We could have it in the proximal CCA. We could have it in the vertebral, although it usually looks different. It could be in the innominate artery here. So plaque could be in all these different places, but for the most part, this is our general area. So we do an exam. The first thing we do is a transverse study. Now, a couple of you guys have asked me about that. You know, why are we doing this transverse study? Is it even worth it? Well, it is. It's kind of like a scout mission. So that includes transverse CCA, prox, mid, and distal. Now, that doesn't mean you look at the proximal, lift up the transducer, look at the mid, lift up the transducer, look at the distal. You look at everything, but you take 3 images. Ugh, whatever. 3 picks, prox, mid, distal. And then I'm just going to, for one now, I'll say 1 pick. You could take 2. It really doesn't matter. A bulb. And then 1 pick bifur, or that's which is just short for bifurcation. So, and there could be more. And I'm talking about grayscale right now. Some people want to use color as well. Fine, I don't care. So, prox, mid, distal, bulb, bifurcation. Let's see, 3, 4, 5. Yep, like 5 pictures in transverse. If you want to add color, go for it. As of right now, as of this moment, at 11:05 on the 8th, I'm going to tell you grayscale only at this point. Color is helpful though. Oh, that's the other thing I want to tell you about color. Doppler in general is not happy in transverse. Doppler is not designed for transverse imaging. So that's kind of one reason why I am not really hot on color, because what ends up happening is you have a transverse picture and the color, really? You'll end up getting color like right in the middle, you know, right where the fastest lamina, and assuming you have laminar flow. Once you start putting color in, doctors want to, now they might be understanding and let this pass. They might not be understanding. They're going to say, no, you color everything in that vessel, because if you don't, that tells me there's plaque there. Well, the problem is in transverse imaging, this is hard to do. Doppler wasn't designed for transverse. It basically has a really poor Doppler angle. Really poor Doppler angle. And it's hard to fix that angle in transverse. So I'm not a huge fan of it. What is nice, I will say that in the bulb, gets a little bigger. The lines start to swirl. Damn, every time. And sometimes we get what's called the yin-yang sign. And of course, there's got to be black in the middle of that, isn't there? Well, okay, that's an awfully large black, but in any case, you get what I mean. The yin-yang, yin, yin-yang sign is nice, but then again, some doctor's going to want you to fill it from wall to wall. Not easy to do. And then, of course, once you get to the bifurcation, and we'll just pretend it's red.
So in order to avoid listening to the doctor's mouth, we just do grayscale for your color?
Yeah, that's what I do. It really depends on the doctor. Some doctors, some of your colleagues will say, no, what the hell are you doing? You got to put color in there. Okay, fine. There are ways of getting color to work. You kind of angle into the vessel. In any case, okay, back to this. So that's basically number one, transverse imaging. It's a scouting mission because you want to see if anything pops out at you. Also, you want to see are these two guys, are they next to each other, or do they immediately, does one of them just take a right angle? And they will do that. And so you want to know that ahead of time. Okay, so then we're going to go to sagittal or long. Let's just call it long. And of course, CCA, prox, mid, distal. Now though, so that's three, prox, mid, distal, except now we're talking about gray, color, and it's going to do PW for pulse wave or spectral. So now we're doing the triple whammy. So quick gray, quick color, quick pulse wave. Personally, I personally will probably combine prox mid or mid distal because you usually can. You see them both in one picture. At least with my gray and my color, and then pulse wave, I'll go ahead and do prox mid and distal. But for you guys, prox mid distal, gray color pulse wave. So 3 times 3, I guess that's 9, right? 9 images there. And then we're going to do long bulb. Whoops. Long bulb in gray and color. And that is tricky. It's tricky in the bulb because the flow is so slow in certain parts that it's hard to get blood to fill from wall to wall. I do not suggest pulse wave in the bulb for simply the same what I just said. The flow is swirling around. It's not, whoops, damn. Forgot that I got that big. I don't think doing pulse wave in the bulb adds anything. The reason being is that you have laminar flow going, hopefully laminar flow going in, swirling flow inside the bulb, and then once it goes back out, it turns into laminar flow again pretty quickly. That swirling flow doesn't help us. I will say, unless indicated. So if there's very significant plaque inside the bulb, then perhaps pulse wave would be of use there. But in general, I would say not. Okay, so then, well, let's see, we're not done. We still need long. We're going to get the ECA out of the way. We don't really care about the external, so that'll be long in gray. Color and pulse wave. Oh, I'm just going to say, let's see, proximal only. Prox only. Unless otherwise indicated, you see something, but usually don't. Now we're going to do long ICA. This feeds the brain. We care about that. That is prox, mid, distal, and we could be talking about 1.5 inches, 3 inches of vessel. So proximate and distal oftentimes are very close to each other. If you're lucky, you have a long, thin neck. You have a long neck and a relatively low bifurcation, and you have all this room to work with. Then that's awesome. Those are fun. Oftentimes, though, it's not that way. And once again, so gray, color, pulse wave in prox, mid, and distal. Paying attention, of course, to any kind of problems that you see. I mean, we're not just. And by the way, I'll tell you a quick story. I used to do some vascular for a hospital. Well, I did general for a hospital, and they had separate departments. But I would volunteer my time. Well, volunteer. I would spend some time with the vascular department doing work with them, and they were cross-training someone who did telemetry to do carotid exams. And I was like, okay, and I know well, so one weekend they said, Kurt, can you, she's not 100% ready to go. Can you just go up and follow and watch her? And I said, sure. And I watched. And I watched the whole exam, and I biting my lip really hard because the whole family was in there. The patient was pretty much was not conscious, but the whole family was in there. So I couldn't say anything. I walked out of that room at the end there, and I told the nurse, I says, do not let that patient go. We're going to rescan. She's like, why? I said, just trust me, we have to rescan this patient. It's not an emergency, but we have to rescan the patient. That person who was being cross-trained, and this is what happens when you have a non-sonographer managing a sonography department. They just thought it was easy. Oh, we'll give her a couple of hours training and that's it. And so this person was actually following the vessel pretty well and passing right over plaque and just putting the pulse wave wherever. wherever she saw color, she just put a pulse wave. The plaque was completely obvious and she missed it. And it's not so much her fault, it's the fault of the people who thought that you can train someone for 2 or 3 hours to do one of these exams. And no, it takes months of training just for this exam. And then you got all the other exams to worry about. So moral of the story is we're not simply taking pictures, right? We know that. We are doing so much more. Okay, so we've long ICA, proximate distal, gray color pulse wave, and paying attention to the black. Now we're going to go and we're going to do long vertebral. That's V-E-R-T. Well, it's just vertebral. Okay, get rid of it. long vertebral, anywhere. Anywhere is fine because we're only going to take it one spot times one spot, and it really doesn't matter proximate, distal. Thing about the vertebral artery is that it suffers usually not from, it can get plaque in certain spots, but what actually ends up happening with the vertebral, for some reason, it just simply gets thinner overall. And so you're not dealing with Bernoulli's problem or equation with the vertebral, but you can be dealing with Poisson. The whole vessel gets thinned out. So we just look at the vertebral anywhere we find it, one spot, gray color pulse wave. And then either, I go to reach for my computer and then the drop down comes in. Either we're done or, use that, or we look at the subclavian. And that's going to be pretty much long. There's no real reason to do a transverse subclavian. And it's hard because you go transverse and half of your transducer is sitting on the bone, on the clavicle. Gray color and pulse wave. Tricky overall, and the reason for that is because the subclavian artery, its waveform changes considerably, whether you're very proximal, mid, or distal on it, very different waveform. And if you're not thinking about exactly where you are, you can really confuse yourself and like, oh my God, why is this waveform look like this? And the last person I did, the waveform was completely different. It could simply be whether you are scanning, you got your, let's see, you got your pulse wave there versus there versus there. Totally different waveforms there. So we'll talk about where the best place to put that is. Or maybe you might work somewhere where they want proximate distal, but I've never been there. And in fact, everywhere I've ever worked, we didn't do the subclavian, but some locations do the subclavian. Let's see, 1120. Okay, that's pretty much, that's all I wanted to tell you. So that's left side, or I'm sorry, the right side. It doesn't matter, left, right. Then you go to the other side, do the same thing all over again. On an easy patient and an experienced sonographer, 15 minutes, easy patient. Most of your patients aren't easy. Somewhat difficult patient, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Very difficult patient, this could be a 45-minute exam. Beyond that, it might not even be worth your time. It might just, they can go get an MRI or a CT of their vessels, and do something else. But these exams could be really rewarding and fun, and I actually really enjoy the carotid. And sometimes they are horrible. When your patient is unconscious and snoring, try doing a Doppler when they're snoring. That's really fun. They have a very large neck. Every time they take a breath, you're looking on the screen, and the entire vessel is just going up and down on the screen. Every single breath they take, and typically they can't hold their breath very long anyway. So That's an issue. Kyphotic patients they got their chin down to their chest, and you think you'd be able to help them move. No, you cannot. You cannot move those patients. So I've done exams where I've barely fit the transducer between their clavicle and their jaw, and I do the entire exam from one location. That's fun. And then there's people who are just ugly, mean people, but for the most part. Be glad you're in El Paso. People are nice here. All right. We kind of covered a wide range of things, right? We finished up 18. We talked about venous flow and gravitational energy, hydrostatic energy, and then what breathing in and out does to your blood flow, especially your venous flow. And then let's see, we once again covered Doppler. Didn't have enough, it was only 11 o'clock, and so I said, forget it, let's talk about the actual exam, what we're gonna do very soon on the actual exam. And it's still only 11:20, but I'm out. I got nothing else to say. And so I think we're done. You guys have any questions?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
I'm good. And re-emphasize this again, kind of.
I can re-emphasize anything you want again. Just always let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Cool. I will see you all tomorrow. Half of you in lab, all of you in Zoom. And this afternoon, I'm gonna be a little bit out of pocket this afternoon. I got to run to school and teach another vascular class. So, okay, yes, good. No assignment for you today. I got to create an assignment for them. All right. I'll just find a video for them real quick. All right, guys, I got to go. We'll see you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.